Hi guys, I just wanted to go over a couple things with you for 15.2. So you're not doing the red whistle questions. I hope nobody went ahead and did that because it was a bit much. So these questions are practice after the orange whistle questions. But there are a couple of things I just wanted to point out just to kind of help you along this section. When you get to number one, and again, this is assuming that my number one and your number one is the same and that the problems are identical. Yours might be a little bit different, but hopefully you'll be able to apply what I'm telling you to your problems. Number one is a 5-part problem, so just make sure you are answering all 5 parts. First section's relatively easy. You're just going to find the totals based upon the frequencies that are given in the rows and the columns. I don't think anybody will have too much trouble with that. When you get to part 2 in number 1, you are being asked to complete the two-way relative frequency table. All right, so now we're going to be finding relative frequencies, which involves dividing. So we're dividing each number in the above table by the grand total. So just make sure that you are following that. Dividing each number in the above table by the grand total. So the grand total is going to be that number in the bottom right-hand corner. Also, another thing you want to be careful with, it says to enter the quotient. So what you get after you divide, you're going to enter them as decimals, not as percents. And you want to make sure, if you need to round to 2 decimal places. All right, so for example, if you had to figure out what the relative frequency was for the girls who preferred the seashore, okay, let's say this box here, you would want to take 13 and divide it by whatever you got for that grand total. Okay, so every single box is going to be done the same way, even these boxes, even the totals. Okay, make sure you don't take, for example, these 3 boxes here and add them up to get the total, because depending upon how you round it in some cases, it might throw off these answers at the end. So just make sure for every single box in this section, you are taking the numbers from the above chart and you are dividing them by the total. Okay, and you should be good with that. Okay, if you take a look at part, 2, 3, and 4, I think you're going to be fine with. Part 5 is about conditional relative frequency, which is probably the most difficult. So it's asking you to find the conditional relative frequency that a student surveyed prefers vacationing in the mountains, given that the student is a girl. All right, so prefers vacationing in the mountains, given that the student is the girl. So this table here is already going to be filled out from one of the previous steps. In order to answer this question, we want to take the number of girls who prefer going to the mountains and divide it by the total number of girls. Okay, that's how you're going to get the conditional relative frequency. And again, just make sure that you're keeping it as a decimal and you're rounding it to 2 decimal places. All right, so that should take care of number 1. Numbers 2 and 3 in this section, I think you'll be fine with. Number 4, I just wanted to point out a couple of things. You are given the frequency table. It says Stefan surveyed 59 of his classmates about their participation in school activities, as well as whether they have a part-time job, and those are the results in the table. So you can see that some were only in clubs, some were only in sports, some participated in both, some participated in neither. And this yes and no pertains to those that had part-time jobs, whether they did or they didn't. So you are creating a two-way relative frequency table using decimals, and again, you're rounding to the nearest hundredth. All right, so for every one of these boxes, again, you are taking the number in the box that you're working with. Let's say we're finding the relative frequency for yes and clubs only and dividing it by the total amount. Okay, so every single one of these decimals you are going to get by taking the number in the box that you're working on and dividing it by 59. And then you're going to be rounding to the nearest hundredths place. All right, so I just want to address that one. And number 5, it says Stefan surveyed 107 of his classmates about participation in school activities. So they gave you the table here with all the decimals filled in. When you're finding the joint and marginal frequencies, these first 2 answers here, You're just looking for the box that pertains to the information that's given. So the division in this problem is already done for you. Okay, you just have to actually find the box that they're talking about and turn that decimal into a percent. So for the first one, you want to look for the box for those that participated in school clubs only and have part-time jobs. Look for that appropriate box, take that decimal, turn it into a percent. That's going to be your answer. And then for the marginal frequency, you want to find the box that pertains to the students who do not have a part-time job, the total amount that do not have a part-time job. And again, you're just going to take that decimal, which is going to be one of the totals, and you're just going to turn that into a percent. Okay, again, the conditional frequency is going to be a little bit trickier, so be careful with that. We want the conditional relative frequency for a student who participated in both schools and sports, given that the student has a part-time job. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're looking for the decimal value for those who participate in both. And you want to divide that by the decimal for the total number that do not have a part-time job. Or that do have a part-time job, sorry. All right, so the ones that participate in both, and you want to divide that by the total number of students that have a part-time job. All right, and that's going to give you a decimal. They want you to turn that into a percent. So that's really the only tricky one. Okay, these two answers here, you're going to get directly from the chart. You just have to turn it into a percent. Okay, the only one you're going to have to do a little bit of work for is this last one with the conditional relative frequency. Okay, the remaining questions in this section, I think there's 2 additional ones. I think you're going to be fine. So if you have any additional questions, let me know. Other than that, have a great day. I'll see you guys.